The country lies at the southernmost point of Arabia. While the incense trade was going strong, it was one of the richest countries of the Old World, and also known as Arabia FELIX, Happy Arabia. Its famous temples were buried beneath the sand for centuries, but the oldest secret of today's Yemen is not buried under the sand. It lies in the Indian Ocean. It is the largest Arabian island, Socotra. In unique geographic and weather conditions, one of the most virginal parts of the world has retained almost intact the appearance of its landscape, flora, fauna, and inhabitants. And because of this, scientists know the archipelago of Socotra as the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. However, monsoons can change life on the island. In such conditions, access to Socotra, where there are no sheltered bays or havens, is rendered very difficult. The Hajj Mountains, or the Arabian Rockies, is a land of slender granite towers. They tower 1,500 meters above the coast like a steep wall. They represent a backbone that runs east-west along the island. Geologists see Socotra as one of the most isolated parts of the world in the geological history of the planet, and the only part of the large prehistoric continent Gondwana which remained unattached from the other masses that split away from the original prehistoric continent. The horizon is hidden behind canopies of large trees. It's the land of the legendary dragon blood tree. Whenever sandstorms lash the island, its inhabitants hate to leave their dwellings, which makes the island an almost lethargic place. The capital, Hadibo, lies on the northern alluvial plain. It gets back to normal life when the monsoons recede. The island has long been cut away from civilization, so the island community still lives according to century-old ancestral traditions. Saleh Islami is a young islander whose parents have moved to the fast-growing Hadibo on the other side of the island. He's meeting his two friends who will help him lay fishing nets in the evening. Amar and Abdul Ghani greet each other by rubbing noses. It's the centuries-old traditional greeting of the Socotrans. It's the height of the fishing season, and it's necessary to replenish the stock of fish for the next monsoon season. The port of Hadibo is constantly buffeted by winds and waves from the northern quadrants. The big waves can make landing extremely dangerous. The old and the young watch the fishermen get ready. They watch how the weather conditions change in order to see whether the sea will allow the fishermen to set sail. The shark hunters go first, for they will voyage all night. Most of these fishermen are the descendants of East African slaves. Sheikh Ali, the head of the family, lets the young do all the work while he sees that community and family laws are observed. For centuries, Socotra has been a safe haven for sailors from shipwrecked or plundered boats, and a guiding beacon for fleets on their way to the Indian Ocean. That's why the Portuguese, and later the English, used it as a naval stronghold. Shark hunters fish a few hours' voyage outside the archipelago. Amar's boat will be back no sooner than the next morning. Meanwhile, in the shallow waters on the other side of the island, Saleh and Abdul Ghani stop their boat, which is called a huri, at the site where shoals of fish gather at the intersection of different marine currents. They cast their nets in places that, as far as they know, are far from the strong currents. Shoals of tuna and barracuda fall prey even as they hunt. The future of these islands and their wealth of natural resources that include some endangered species needs to be protected. Now they are recognized as part of our natural heritage. UNESCO declared them a reserve of the world biosphere. As early as the 19th century, these almost inaccessible islands, with an abundance of living fossils absent from the mainland, became the center of attention of numerous botanical expeditions. Most of these trees haven't changed since the Mesozoic age. They are a relic of ancient flora which has become extinct on the mainland. Socotra retains these particular species. The giant cucumber tree, Dendrosicia socotrana, grows as high as 5 meters, reflecting radiation from its white bark, which is almost as smooth as leather. Its minuscule leaves contrast sharply with its gigantic appearance. Explorers make for the island to study its various forms of life.
Our main objective during these first 2 years was the formulation of integrated conservation zoning plan, which of course required very high level of involvement of the local community. And of course we had to conduct extensive biodiversity surveys both at land and at sea.
What kind of record of life on Socotra will remain for posterity? Will the bird colonies that visit this island paradise to breed, will they leave any trace in the testimony? Socotra, which lies on the same latitude as the Cape Verde Islands, is affected by the trade winds. Rain, storms and hurricanes rage every monsoon season. They come from the southwest in summer and from the northeast in winter. When the climate settles down, it reveals a virgin countryside, a landscape of fairy tale scenery. Its steep coasts are buried beneath aeolian detritus. Dunes of coral sand, white as snow, beaten for centuries by the waves, spread out for hundreds of meters. The island could be the playground of the goddess Aphrodite, washed by sea foam. The tradition of collecting valuable aromatic frankincense has survived near Calencia in the north of Socotra. For centuries, it was used all over the ancient world for healing and the burning of incense during religious rituals. Saleh's ancestors used to collect it right here. Saleh is showing us that at the incisions in the bark of the boswellia tree, a sticky, rubbery matter accumulates. When it burns, it gives off a pleasant, sweet odor. He peels small dry drops from the surface of the bark. Today there are 50,000 inhabitants on the island. They're bilingual, speaking both Yemeni, Arabic and Socotri, an aboriginal unwritten language of southern Semitic origin. Most houses are built of stone. On the island, there's no wood fit for building with the exception of palm fronds. The houses have no windows, only small holes near the floor through which daylight and ventilation is provided. The pointed wooden boats called huris that brave the high waves around Socotra are masterpieces of carpentry. These fishermen mostly descend from Africans who settled in the villages along the coast. Besides fishing, they earn their living from various trades. They work as peddlers, blacksmiths, and carpenters making boats. And they are also gifted musicians, playing African drums. All the year round, inexhaustible streams of water flow from the highlands down into the wadis, something miraculous for the Arabic world. Freshwater pools in the wadis are host to various kinds of life. Many of them are endemic, such as certain dragonflies and freshwater crabs. Succulents are plants adapted to life in dry areas. The tissues in their bodies serve as water reservoirs. This tree, from the euphorbia family, is an island curiosity and has an odd umbrella-like crown of fleshy leaves that store water. The symmetrical top of this tree-shaped euphorbia buds according to a mathematical formula, a series of numbers discovered by the medieval scientist Fibonacci. We are in Wadi Denigen, which is guarded from above by Egyptian vultures, birds that live in the largest colonies in the world right here on Socotra. Wadis, with a constant supply of water, overshadowed by steep cliffs, are home to numerous birds. There are more than 110 different species of bird on Socotra.
There are 6 endemic bird species which we cannot see elsewhere in the world, only in Socotra. In addition to that, there are 11 endemic subspecies which scientists believe that some of those may merit full species description. BirdLife International, the Darwin Initiative Project, and the JEF project are working together in Socotra into mapping the distribution and the breeding bird of Socotra into a maps, and also working with school children on conservation issues.
Ornithologists, specialists from Great Britain among them, study typical bird habitats, make inventories of their nesting sites, and record their sounds. The tiny